All right, good evening, everyone. So in today's session, it's going to be short, simple, and sweet. Um, we are pretty much going to be understanding how to trade using a stochastic RSI. Um, what the stochastic RSI is, it's pretty much a momentum indicator, so it doesn't really much tell you where price is going to go, but rather when buying momentum and selling momentum is coming, and the underlying name that you're looking at. So in this case, for those who, if you guys weren't here for the previous class I did regarding key levels, I can just pretty much give you a quick rundown of that. So essentially, to find your key levels, you go on the 30-minute time frame and look for your swing high and swing low areas. So in this case, these would be my swing high and swing lows. So wherever price right here, this would be a key level that you would mark. This area is a key level as well, right here, right here, right here. So essentially, you're marking your swing high and swing lows, and that's your key level. So you mark them on your 30-minute time frame, and then you can go on your 5-minute or whatever time frame and trade using those key levels. But I'm saying that to say I already have my levels set, so I understand what targets I'm looking for in the case that I'm longing or shorting things. So right off the bat, with the stochastic RSI, the settings that you're going to have if you're using it will be the upper band will be at 100 and the lower band can be at 5, or you can put it at 0, but I'd like to put it at 5, right? So what happens is whenever that stochastic RSI, at least on the 1 hour time frame, which is a sweet spot as far as what I found, you can pretty much get daily actionable signals using the 1 hour time frame stochastic RSI, in conjunction with the 5 minute, and I'll show you how. But essentially, whenever that stochastic RSI gets to that 100 zone, you're you don't want to long, because that says that, okay, we are in a selling zone. So that means selling pressure can pick up at any point. So you're not really interested in longing whenever you see the stochastic RSI on the 1 hour get into this seller zone, or pretty much any time frame that you're looking at. But in this case, since we're using the 1 hour, whenever you see it in that seller zone, longs are off the table until you get it in that buyer zone, right? And I'll show you why. So every time we get it into the buyer zone on a 1 hour time frame, you're going to get buyers to step in and push price up. How much are they going to push price up? Again, like I said, we don't know how much they'll push price up, but we understand that buying pressure or buying momentum will step in. Now, that's where my key levels come into play, because those key levels will now tell me, okay, based on this current buying pressure, what level is it at and what level is up next above that could potentially be hit with this, buying momentum. So in this case, we can see that price was actually coming off of a resistance area, a rejection area, and was selling down. And there's a reason why it bounced here. So that selling area, if you look compared to the stochastic RSI, was in that 100 zone. So even if you've seen this whole rally here, I know people would have seen this breakout here at 60, 64, and without having all this price action, they would have tried to long that breakout, right? But the fact that we understand that the stochastic RSI in this case at that 60, 67 wasn't at seller zone, we're not necessarily longing that potential breakout. In fact, we're looking to short that breakout actually, because we're not trying to short it to do a trend change, but just short it to get that 1 hour stochastic RSI from that seller zone back into that buyer zone. Where are they going to take price from that point? We don't know. That's where our levels come into play. So in this case, had you have went short around that 65 to 67 area, okay, your first area that you're looking for price to get to hit and see how the stochastic RSI reacts is 60.57, because, or 56. That's a key level. So in this case, price rejected and flushed through that 60.56. So looking at that compared to the 1 hour, right? We didn't even budge much, right? We didn't budge as far as pulling it down to that buyer zone. Okay. So the fact that we didn't budge from pulling it from that seller zone to that buyer zone tells me, okay, at 60.40 or 60.39.75, we could potentially still see some more downside, right? So where's that downside? Well, I have 60.18. So that's where I will go short in this sense, right? Or still hold my shorts, and I'm looking for that push to that next key level to the downside. Again, my goal is to, while this push is happening to that downside, I want that stochastic RSI on the 1 hour to cool off and get into that buyer zone so I can start setting up for longs, right? In this case, we broke under that key level at 6039.75. We couldn't break back above it on a retest, and we started to sell off more to that 6018. And notice that the stochastic RSI was in that buyer zone now that we got into that 6018. So the fact that we're now in that buyer zone, here's how I approach this again on the 1 hour. Being that we are holding this 6018 key level, okay, the fact that we are holding the 6018 key level, if we can continue to hold it, we should get buyers to step in. But not only that, my first target is my key level previously that it broke under, which is at 6039.75. So I would have went long at 6018, would have had my relative stops in play, and my target would have been 6039.75. And in this case, you got your target. And with that, me, I would have personally been out. Yes, you would have seen all of this. However, I would have been out because I got my entry, I got what I needed, and at that 6039, the stochastic RSI was sitting at around that 81 level. So while it wasn't at that 100 zone, I didn't want to really play. I don't want to, be risky and try and take it all the way up to see where it's gonna, reject that at that seller zone. Because again, there was a previous breakout that rejected, and me taking it from 18 to 39, I'm okay with that because I mean, yes, it can go to 55, but it can reject as well. In this case, it did go to 55. It hit that seller zone, and yes, it went up even more, even though that price was in that seller zone. So if I was looking at this, would I long this? No, I wouldn't long it. And that's where your patience has to come into play. Okay, you wouldn't long this because your stochastic RSI is in that seller zone. So at any point, they could pull this back in order to cool off the stochastic RSI back into that buyer zone. So there's times where they'll give us a nice dump or they'll do what I call keep the market sideways to call off the stochastic RSI. And in this case, they kept the market sideways overnight. Oops, let me correct that. They kept the market sideways overnight, the whole night, in order to call off that 1 hour stochastic RSI. And that's where you've seen um, buyers try and step in. And I think I was even long, I longed this as well. And I was able to get my target, but it was such a difficult, trade. And as you can see, it was a difficult trade because everything was just sideways. Right now, the current market we're in is very volatile and very, low volume. So it was just me going up against low volume. However, my trade did end up working. I did end up getting my target. Now, in this case, these longs for today would have worked as far as me holding long and looking for a push to the upside. However, we had tariff news that was announced or whatever, which messed everything up, right? But I don't want to say it messed everything up to an extent. It just didn't give us that full technical move that we were looking for, right? Because in this case, okay, we would have went long, right? We're looking for what? The stochastic RSI to get into that seller zone. Because once it's in that seller zone, then we can comfortably short. Now, NQ, I'll go flip over to NQ today and you'll see something that NQ was showing that ES wasn't showing, which is I was waiting for both of them to line up and they weren't lining up. But ES was already nearing, it was at that 81 level. So it was nearing that seller zone, right? It wasn't there, but it was nearing there. Now, it did eventually dump because Trump announced tariffs or whatever, yada yada. We had consumer sentiment, which was not good. So if we just take a look at NQ real quick, right? Go take a look at NQ. So taking a look at NQ, you can see something a little bit different here, right? You can see something a little bit different with NQ compared to ES. NQ today, or not today, actually, what was this? Thursday, 7, 8. Hold on. I gotta be seeing two different things. No, NQ didn't hit it either. Hmm, that's interesting. Yeah, NQ didn't hit his seller zone either. So yeah, Trump news just messed that whole thing up. But I Low-key thought NQ was already in that seller zone, but that was yesterday. NQ was in the seller zone and ES was barely catching up. However, with NQ, you would have seen the same setup that you would have seen on ES, like I explained. NQ, there was a breakout area that it was trying for on Tuesday at 21,666, failed it, right? Because the stochastic RSI was in that seller zone. So if you were going short, you would have targeted 21,606 and then 21,560. And again, with every target to the downside that you're looking for on the short end, you're looking at that stochastic RSI to make sure it's getting to that buyer zone so you know when to exit. In this case, got to the buyer zone at 21,419, bounced, boom, pushed up. Right here, it was in that seller zone all night, right? All night. And I know I was like, I'm not really interested in longs because NQ is in that seller zone. And then they cooled it off as far as not pulling it down bad just to get it into the buyer zone. And then as you can see, there's a reason why it was just chopping up despite like barcoding this way, it was still pushing up. And that was because the stochastic RSI on the 1 hour was trying to get into that seller zone. So that's where I say the 1 hour or the stochastic RSI doesn't necessarily tell you how much price is going to push, but rather when that buying momentum and that selling momentum is going to come. Because anybody that was trading this would have obviously clearly seen that, yes, this has to be sold into. This is a rising wedge. However, they would have said, dang, why isn't this not selling yet? Every time it's trying to sell, it gets caught. Every single time it's getting caught. That's because the buying momentum was still trying to get it to that selling zone. And then finally, they dumped it, So that's NQ, but that's how you can use the stochastic RSI to your advantage. Now, I like to use a 1 hour, but the 1 hour and the 5 minute is your sweet spot when trying to execute trades on this. Okay. And I will show you exactly why. So in this case, I'll have ES up on the 5 minute time frame right here. And on this chart with ES, I will have it up on the 1 hour time frame. And you're gonna see something. So we will go to this bounce point right here on Tuesday. Because I want to show you what it looked like relative to the 5 minute as far as how to execute on this type of setup. So it was Tuesday right here. Okay, let me zoom in. All right. So in this case, right, where was the rejections? The rejections were at what time is that? 3 o'clock. Well, Tuesday the 4th. What was that? Three? Oh, that's 1 o'clock. Okay, 1 o'clock. Right here. Boom. All right. So here was the rejection right here on the 5 minute. How do you play this, right? You have the 5 minute rejection and you have the 1 hour rejection right here. Okay. The way you play this, right? The 1 hour stochastic RSI is in that seller zone and it got into that seller zone on this green candle here with the push to that 67. So the fact that you see it at that seller zone in that 67 on a 1 hour, you're looking on the 5 minute, okay? What you're looking for is that 5 minutes to also have its stochastic RSI in that seller zone at once it gets to that level. So the time that it hit 67 was at 8 o'clock. So we're gonna look for 8 o'clock. It was what right here, pretty much right here. Yeah. This was the first time. So in this case, the stochastic RSI wasn't really near my seller zone, but it was somewhat there. Okay, it was somewhat there. So the way I would have went about this is, okay, I'm gonna short, right? I'm gonna go short initially up here around the 65 to 67 area because I see the rejection. I see the 1 hour stochastic RSI is exiting my seller zone there, but I'm gonna just short there. This is me being realistic with myself as far as like the current market conditions, me chasing a position, yada yada, right? So nothing's ever perfect, right? I'm gonna go short. Now, what I know that is this 5 minute time frame will give me actionable signals back to back. So I have to be aware of that. And if I want to play it, I can play it, but you have to remember the overall picture is currently to short, right? So what do I mean by these actionable signals? Well, okay, if I went short here at that 67, 65 to 67, I'm essentially trying to, yes, pull the 1 hour stochastic RSI into that buyer zone, but also at the same time, I'm trying to do the same thing on a 5 minute as well, right? But I know that once I pull it into that buyer zone on a 5 minute, it's going to try and bounce until it gets back into that seller zone. So if you went short at 67, right, and then it pulls down into this 39 and it's in that buyer zone, you can technically, right? Okay, hear me out. You can technically take your profits, right? And go look at the 1 hour and say, okay, well, is it in that buyer zone once it hit that 39? No, it's still in the seller zone. So in this case, right? In this case, you can just wait for the pop. If you don't want to play the long side because you're still leaning short, you can wait for the pop on the 5 minute back into the seller zone because once you get that pop back into the seller zone, what you do is you go short, right? So in this case, the 5 minute right here pops back into the seller zone at around 60.56, right? So me, what I have shorted there, yes, realistically, yes. Yes, I would. And I would have said, okay, if we break back above 67 and break out with the break and retest, then I'll probably cut the short and try and reposition. But I'm still going to be leaning short because this 1 hour is still signaling short. So I would have went short here. I would have probably been in some drawdown, right? This is if I'm not being, really technical about things. However, with this push up, right? It because it was pulling back down, but then it popped back up out of nowhere. But with that pop back up, it was still in that seller zone on a 5 minute, right? So I'm still holding. Okay. I'm still holding. So I'm still holding my short because we're back in that seller zone on the 5 minute and we're still in that seller zone on ES2 or sorry, on the 1 hour. Now we're pulling back down. So, okay, we're looking good. We're looking good. We're right back at my entry, but it's in that buyer zone. So now I'm just like a little bit frustrated in the sense where it's just like, that pullback was just it caused enough momentum to pull this 5 minute back into that buyer zone. So I should expect short-term pops to just annoy me right now, even though I know that the overall 1 hour is still signaling, hey, hold your position. So with those short-term pops, boom, we're popping right back up again. Yes, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. But out of nowhere, the market rewarded you and then just flushed and then went right into that 39 level. Okay. Right into that 39 level. Now, you could be out of your position again if you want to, or you can still continue to hold for more downside, right? Because even at that 39 level, the 1 hour stochastic RSI still was not in that buyer zone. It was nearing there, right? It was nearing that median, but it wasn't there. So me in this case, okay, we're back at that 39. We're kind of nearing that buyer zone. I'm gonna exit my position from 56 to 39. Good trade again, while still keeping that overall short position because, or that short thesis because the 1 hour is still saying so. So now that we're still on a 5 minute, right? I'm gonna wait for that stochastic RSI to get right back into that seller zone. Okay. In this case, it got back into that seller zone at around 56. You could wait a couple if you want to see more rejections just to confirm it. You got a lot of rejections around there. Boom, you can go short. You went short and then look back into that buyer zone. So in this case, again, you can exit your short again and wait for that pop into that seller zone, or you can continue to try and hold for that 1 hour and say, you know what, now I'm baked into my position. I'm gonna now flip to the 1 hour, just stay on the 1 hour. Understand that the 5 minute will still have those pops, so I'm going to ignore it and still hold for now that final pull to 18. Or you can keep going in and out. In this case, if you wanted to go in and out, right, you would have went short, got out. Okay. In this case, it dipped back under. So you would be like, fuck, like I should have held, I should have held. But no, don't worry. Once it broke that key level, you want to wait for the break and retest. So it broke, you got the retest, you got the rejection. And in this case, right, once it broke with this break right here, it was in that seller zone. It was very sloppy. You got a nasty retest with a rejection. Me personally, I wouldn't have went short yet. I would have still waited. Why? Because with this 5 minute stochastic RSI, it wasn't in that seller zone, right? I would have still waited. So that pull down did bring into that buyer zone, so I would have for sure said, yeah, I'm gonna wait because there could be another pop into that seller zone. In this case, it did pop back into the seller zone with this being right back under that key level. Okay, now I'm gonna go short. Now that we're under 39, my next key level is at 18. I'm gonna go short, no longer be in and out for the scalps. I'm holding for now that 1 hour pull to the 18. And in this case, yes, you got those nasty noise, that nasty noise. In this case, some nasty noise back to your entry. But what happened? Boom, another flush, pop back up because of the stupid noise, but then another flush. And then essentially, I mean, if you wanted to get greedy, you would have waited for 18. But I mean, it went all the way down to 20. That's literally 2 points away from 18. You would have been out, boom, and then would have started to wait for your longs. Why? Because now once you flip to the 1 hour, you can see that the stochastic RSI was in that buy zone. So you can now start saying, hey, I'm starting to lean long. If we hold this 18, start to look bullish on the 5 minute, I'm gonna go long. How would you do it? Well, the 1 hour is holding that buyer zone, right? Holding 18. 5 minute, okay, boom, it's in that buyer zone. Bite long, boom. I bite long and I'm waiting for it to go to that seller zone. So now I went to the seller zone. When did it hit it? It hit it at around 32, let's call it. So from 20 to 32, a nice, what, 12-point move. You can exit. Wait for it to get into your buyer zone again. In this case, I mean, it was just sloppy. It just ran, right? It just ran. But that's where, if you were trying to be a scalper in and out, yes, the 5 minute will still work for you. You can still catch something. But using that bigger time frame, that 1 hour, what I like to do is once I'm baked in a position on the five, once I see my entry and everything, because I see the 1 hour has that setup, I ignore the noise and I just wait for that 1 hour to get from that buyer zone to the seller zone. Because at that point, I'm sitting through all these nasty red candles and, I'm just holding for from key level to key level. So, um, that's pretty much how you can use the stochastic RSI to your advantage, right? So if we look at today and what happened today, today was just very interesting and very nasty. Obviously, we had Trump news that was just messing shit up, but I went long down here at 92 and we were looking so good. We were doing so well, like so well. Everything was doing so well. But you guys can kind of see why I went long around that 92. While the 1 hour stochastic RSI was still exiting that buyer zone to go into that seller zone, that told me, hey, we still have room, for upside. And we were getting said room for upside, right? So I was like, all right, let me look for a pullback. We got the pullback into 92. I go long because I see that the buyer zone or the stochastic RSI in a 5 minute is in that buyer zone. So I'm holding for that buyer zone to that seller zone. 92 to 61.17. We were doing so good. So good. And then out of nowhere, boom. I think I exited too. I didn't wait for the 17. I exited actually. And then I was trying to wait for re-entries on a dip. And then that's when the tariffs came because I seen it in the seller zone on a 5 minute. And then the tariffs came out of nowhere. And then boom. Like that took it to the buyer zone, but um, it was a nasty red candle. I wasn't in a position, luckily. However, in this case, I tried to long here, and you guys can kind of understand why I tried to long. Now, I did take a loss on that long, but my reason for it is because again, we just had the tariff news and tariff news plus consumer sentiment, it wasn't good. But essentially, I was trying to get that 5 minute by stochastic RSI from that uh, buyer zone to the seller zone, and then right here he announced more tariffs. He signed some more things with China, so it caused another leg down, which was just out of nowhere. And then I was like, okay, interesting. And then look at this, just had crazy orders, just crazy orders going through. But notice how it kept creeping itself up, creeping itself up, creeping itself up before getting to 60.86. And what did that do with the stochastic RSI? Buyer zone, seller zone. And notice how it just then dumped right back down. And right, yeah, it was nasty. Nasty work. Look at that. It was nasty work. So, that's how you can use it to your advantage. If anybody has any questions, does this make sense so far? Do you all have questions? If you have questions, ask away in the chat. But if not, let me know. Does this make sense? So you guys pretty much know how to like go about using it. So like essentially this will help you not chase a move, and this can help you be a lot more patient to really catch a move. And that's why again, like, can I do a Thursday NQ breakdown? Yes. That's why like you'll hear me tweet like, okay, I'm looking to go long, I'm looking to go short. If you go look at my tweets from last night, I was spot on. I was like, okay, NQ's looking to be shorted. Look at the time I tweeted it and go look at what happened with NQ and ES. Look at if they dropped, they dropped. And I was like, all right, both names are looking to set up now for a push up. Go look at the time I tweeted it and look at what they did afterwards. They pushed right back up. So the only reason why I was saying that and the reason why it was coming to fruition was because I was using this same method that I taught or I'm teaching you all. But the NQ breakdown, yes, we can do that. NQ breakdown for Thursday. Thursday, right here. Okay, so Thursday, right off the bat, I'm always gonna start to look on the 1 hour time frame. Okay. So what do you want to do? Do you want to do Thursday, like Wednesday after hours going into Thursday morning? Do you want to do that or Thursday during our cast session at, New York session? What do you want to do? We can do New York session or we can okay, New York session it is. Uh oh, this is beautiful. Okay. So in this case, let me just point out where our New York session is. What can I use? What can I use? Just use this kind of right here. All right. So this red dot right here is our New York session. So in this New York session, okay, let me go over here. This is where we're at. Let me just make this wider for you all. Okay. So in this New York session, here's how I would have went about it. Starting with the 1 hour time frame. All right. And one thing, let me just add real quick. I'm up all night, so I'm looking at the overnight session into the morning session so I can see everything that's going on and understand everything that's going on. So I seen that, okay, we're coming off of a seller zone and we're coming into a buyer zone. So if I'm waking up in the morning, I'm seeing that, all right, we've had dipped into a buyer zone overnight. It looks like we have to start heading to the seller zone. So my bias for the morning, I'm long, but I'm not long for
Umut,
the rest of the day. I'm just long up until my 1 hour stochastic RSI goes from that buyer zone into that seller zone. Once it hits there,
I know
I
that's
am
good.
seeing
I'm gonna think
my
out it, man.
overall bias for the day
It's I don't
from
forget with everything I know.
let me so I'm changing my overall bias for the day from bullish to bearish, right? Because now I'm looking for a sell, and you'll see, right? So in this case, all right, let's look for 630 on a 5 minute because right now my NQ 1 hour is telling me to long. So on the 5 minute, 610, 620, 625, 630, we have a three candle, but this is coming off of a seller zone. So right off the bat during market open, I'm not really long. I'm not long. This one's going to be a difficult one. I'm not really long. There's two ways I can go about this. You can take a risky long or you can take a smart long. My risky long is I already see the 1 hour trying to go to that seller zone. Let me just buy it. I don't care what the 5 minute is saying, but at that point, you can ensue some type of drawdown that you may not, be aware of. The smart long is all right. We're in the buyer zone on a 1 hour stochastic RSI. Let me wait for that 5 minute to get there too, and then I'm longing. Okay, boom. Right off the bat, 630, it's not there. I'm not long. It's pushing up. I'm sure everybody's posting their gains, they're posting their profits. Oh my God, yeah, we're rallying. We're going up. Cool. You're sitting there, you don't care. You know why? Because your 5 minute is not giving you that entry yet. Okay. The 1 hour, yes. The 5 minute, no, not yet. You want both to line up, and you'll see why, because everything will just be a lot more flush to an extent. All right. Everybody's enjoying their profits, but you say, nah, we're in that seller zone. A sell can happen at any point, and I can get my entry. I'm gonna wait. Boom, what happened? Boom, red candle. I know everybody's like, what the fuck just happened? You're like, we were in that seller zone the whole time during that whole run up, and now we're back with this pullback, and that pullback is now giving me what? An entry. So now I don't take my entry up until 7:45. So an hour into market open is when I'm finally in my entry. Why? Because at that 7:45, okay, right? And I can go mark that too with an arrow. This is essentially where my entry would be. This is this candle right here. Guess what it's showing me? We're in that buyer zone on a 5 minute. All right. We're holding a key level at 21,742. And on a 1 hour, not only is it a little, double bottom because buyers are stepping in, but we are still in that buyer zone. You can see that we're still in that buyer zone. So in this case, right, I'm holding my long. I'm in longs, I'm holding, right? But we don't know how much of a move we're gonna get with the stochastic RSI. We can just take it from level to level. And I already have my key levels up, so that's why you see these lines. But essentially, if I went long at 21,742, my first target is 21,795. Okay. Now, your goal is while you're reaching for that target, you're keeping an eye on that 5 minute stochastic RSI, making sure it's not, hitting that seller zone too fast because at that point you're gonna probably have to exit your position and then find a re-entry because it can pull back on you, right? In this case, 742, you're in, you got your target. And not only did you get your target, but your stochastic RSI wasn't even in that buyer zone yet. Don't get greedy. Just take it from key level to key level. Okay, you got your target. Boom. I would have been out because I already got my target. Now, what I would have said was, okay, do what you want to do. Go to that buyer zone or go to that seller zone because at whatever point you're gonna have to pull back, go back into a buyer zone, and then be in that, at that push back to that target, the 1 hour stochastic RSI didn't go to that seller zone. I'm gonna still be looking for longs. So I'm not bearish yet, right? So I'm out. It pulls back. It doesn't even get to that seller zone, so it pulls back. So now I'm even happier because now it doesn't run too much against me. So now I have another chance at double dipping. So it pulls back and it pulls back into that buyer zone around here at what is that? At 9:10. Okay, 9:10. So it's pulled back at 9:10. Let's go market because this is where my entry would be. Nothing's perfect. Oops. And it's this green candle right here, or this candle right here. And that candle relative to the 1 hour stochastic RSI still not in my seller zone. So what am I doing? My bias still long, and I'm still going in. We're still holding below that 742. So I'm gonna bite. Okay, I'm gonna bite long. So I bite long at 21,760, and my essential outlook is I'm taking that 5 minute stochastic RSI to that seller zone as well. Or I'm getting my 21,795 target, and then I'll be out to see if we can, because I'll see if we get to that seller zone at that target. I'll be out and then try and double dip or something or triple dip. In this case, you got your target 21,794, but you weren't in that seller zone yet. Now, me, I'm not gonna lie, I get greedy sometimes. If I have more than one runner up, I'm gonna trim and then I'll leave run just to see, okay, let's get into that seller zone, then I'll be out. In this case, you got a little bit extra, right? A little bit extra that hit that seller zone there. So if we go mark that, right, compare it to the stochastic RSI, so on a 1 hour, because again, I'm using both, I have both up. So if I'm looking at the 1 hour, we're still not there yet. So that's like, fuck, we still got more upside? Okay. So I'm out of my position. Now I'm back on that 5 minute and I'm looking for re-entry at, let's say again, my re-entry, I'm not necessarily looking for a re-entry back where I entered at around 21,742. It's relative to where that stochastic RSI lands in that buyer zone and where price is. So sometimes it can land at a higher key level at 21,795, right? So in this case, we're gonna just see where it landed. So it pulled back nicely and it was holding this 21,795, right? But in this case, there was a big red candle that came. And now you're like, oh shit. Oof. We're in that buyer zone, but a red candle came. Okay. Now, with the red candle that came, because I know with this big red candle that pulled back here, you're waiting for a new candle to open to see how it reacts. But that new candle that opened just quickly flushed. So in this case, right, you see that it pulls back to this 21,742 key level and you're still in that buyer zone. What am I doing? I'm long, right? So I'm holding my longs. I'm going to hold my longs. I'm going to hold my long because we're holding this key level and we're still in that buyer zone. So now I'm just trying to take it from that 5 minute buyer zone to that seller zone again. So from 742, my target again is 795. A ping pong, rinse and repeat, because it seems like we are range bound right now until we make a move. So boom, you go long, you go long, and this is one of these. This is probably a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful long. Why? Look at how smooth you get. Nothing but green candles leading up to your target, and you would have been out at 795. Yes, it would have gone extra, but again, you're not caring. If you have runners and you're on that 1 hour, yes, you're gonna catch all this extra stuff because that 1 hour is still not at that seller zone. Yes. But if you're a scalper and you're trying to go in and out using that bullish momentum from your 1 hour being that, okay, we're still not in that seller zone, you're gonna miss out on some of these pops. I'm just gonna say that right now. You're gonna miss out on some of these pops. But if you like are more of those long-term holders, like you get in your position and then you like to hold for that move, you're gonna catch it, right? But in this case, you missed the pop. Yes, don't. It doesn't matter. It's still bullish, right? All you're doing is waiting for that pullback right into your buyer zone, where at wherever key level it lands at. So in this case, boom, it's popping. It's popping. It even goes to 21,882. I know you're furious, but then boom, you're met with a red candle. Okay, that red candle is still not in that buyer zone, so there could still be more selling pressure. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Okay, we're pushing up on price, but we're pulling down. Oh, they seem to be keeping price sideways to push things higher. Probably. Okay, let's go for it. Go for it. Well, in this case, they brought it right back down to the buyer zone on the 5 minute, but we didn't land back at that 742. We just went at a higher key level at 21,795. So now in this case, I go long at 21,795, right? And mind you, we've already closed the market. Okay. So now we're spilling into after hours. So this is anybody trading the after hour session and stuff like that. So in this case, after hours markets is open. I'm gonna go long. My target, I'm not only looking for that 5 minutes to get in that buyer zone, we're still getting there on the 1 hour. You go long, and look, it's sideways. Yes, it's sideways, it's sideways, it's sideways. But 5 minute hits the stochastic RSI and you're at 861. So from what 806 to 861, decent move, you'll be out, right? So now you're waiting for it to get back in that buyer zone, right? So in this case, look at how they kept price sideways to cool off the stochastic RSI. They kept it sideways, cooled off the stochastic RSI. You would have, I would have gone long lightly, and I would have still been targeting this 21,882 key level or PDH at the time, which it still is. And you don't get it all the way because the 5 minutes sarcastic R side gets into that seller zone, but nothing's ever perfect. So I would have been out, boom, you got another move. Um, in this case, it still went up. It still went up. But if you're scalping, you understand that you're gonna miss out on those extra little pops. You just want to wait for your next free entry to come. And where does your entry come? Because in everything that's happening there, right? What time is it? It's 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, you're finally into that seller zone. So now, guess what? Your bias is no longer leaning long. Now you're leaning short. Now you're looking for short possibilities. And now it's pretty much clear as day as to what you wait for. 1 hour stochastic R size in that seller zone. Okay, go to the 5 minute, look for your seller zone, grab your short, and take it to the buyer zone. So seller zone, grab your short. This case, they kept it sideways. Bullshit, but you get the point, right? Oh, essentially, eventually, they drop this shit, but this is what I call like shitty fucking manipulation. So yes, you would have for sure been short on Thursday, and you would have seen that why are we pushing up and this is cooling off. This is so annoying. And then Trump news comes out like this. Today was just a weird day. It said fuck your TA, fuck everything. But I hope this all made sense. Like, th- does this make sense as far as how I'm using a stochastic RSI on both time frames to not only gauge momentum, but then get my entry and exit? And so for that day, it keeps me nimble where it keeps me on both sides. I don't have to be bullish the whole day or bearish the whole day. I'm just relatively bullish and bearish based on what my 1 hour stochastic RSI is telling me, because based on that 1 hour time frame, I know that I can get actionable day tradable moves in and out, throughout that trading session. If, sometimes you're going to get a trend day and you're going to catch that trend day where there's the upside to the downside. So you don't have to always, be in and out. But this is the most perfect way. I call it the in and out method because, again, once you have your key levels identified, all you're doing is once you see that buying momentum or selling momentum build, you're just taking it from key level to key level. Sometimes you're going to get the market to flush through a key level and just get, overly rewarded. Sometimes it's going to take its sweet time, and that's the market for you. But thank you all for showing up. This is recorded, so I will have it made available for those who want to go back and watch it. But I really do hope you guys can back test this and, see it for yourselves. If you do have questions, just DM me on Twitter, at iTradeContracts, and I for sure will answer you guys. But with that being said, you all stay safe, have a safe and blessed weekend, and I'll see you all Sunday and Monday.